Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend. Happy Thanksgiving, because this is the block that's going to come on the air Thanksgiving Day. So, hello. I hope you're all enjoying your food. So, two things I want to urge everybody with, not just their holiday cooking, but their cooking in general. Two very useful tools in the kitchen. Actually, I'll throw a third free one in there for you too. A kitchen thermometer. The digital thermometers, they're cheap, they're accurate. They save you a lot of hassle. I wish when I was a college student learning how to really like barbecue chicken on my own for the first time, I wish I had a thermometer to keep checking the drumsticks instead of trying to take a bite because the outside is cooked and be like, oh, it's still pink inside. No, you can save yourself the trouble. And poultry, you want to cook to 165 degrees. Burgers are about 145. Yeah, 155. There's
135, 145.
Because there are actual temperatures for how you like your steak cooked. It's a thing. It's not just like the cook's best guess. There's actually a way we can know how it is. But
it's 115 to 120 for extra blue rare, all the way down to 160 plus for well done. So medium rare would be 130 to 140.
Then the second thing, especially with handling all the raw poultry in particular, but it applies for pork and beef too, get yourself a box of gloves. They're $15 for 100 pair or for 100 gloves, and that will last you a while.
Go to Costco and buy one for like $6.
Yeah, I mean, just go. I mean, heck, your local drugstore will have them. But yeah, go to your Costco or your kitchen supply store if you have one in your town, because they really do. Not just are you saving yourself from cross-contamination when you're working with the poultry, and then you maybe rinse your hands off and then you go to cut the vegetables for your salad. You don't want to do that. You want to touch the poultry with gloves, still wash your hands afterwards. It's a habit. I wash my hands basically
all the time.
Task.
So actually last night I was making stir fry, and I started, and as soon as I started, I'm like, wait, I have gloves.
Yeah.
Put gloves on, cut the chicken up, had that, did the onion, took the gloves off, put more gloves on, did all the produce and everything, have the rice already done, and then everything I do after that, when I'm doing the preparation, I can just use the gloves because it's all mixed together now at this point cooking, and then my hands at the end are washing them after with gloves on versus after handling all the food and stuff. You're just, if you're handling the food and you're washing your hands, I mean, something about bartenders is we actually have really sensitive hands just because they're wet all the time, and we can feel different stuff. The thing I hate most is getting, like, say, sugar on my hands, because I get that little tiny bit of tactification. And when I'm doing stuff, it sticks that extra split second, and all of a sudden things are falling down if my hands aren't clean. It drives me insane. So I constantly wash my hands. My hands are constantly in hot water.
Sure.
You don't want to do that while you're cooking dinner. Do it with gloves. You only have to do it a couple of times instead of, say, 6.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I often in the kitchen will have a glove on this hand and my knife in this hand.
Yeah.
And I will try to keep this hand clean and dry, because if I need to sprinkle a little salt, then there's nothing on this hand that's going to contaminate the salt. Not that salt is on its own a carrier of bacteria, but if you have the chicken juice on your hand,
if your hands are wet or dirty, or you have gloves on, that salt's getting in everything from now on, because it's not going away.
It's not going, exactly. Whereas you could just pinch and dry and it's done. Yes. Then there are some things that naturally just lead to the next, like if you have leftover rice, go for the stir fry. If you've roasted a whole bird, you make stock out of those bones and you make soup. There's then the whole world of casseroles and frittatas and pasta dishes that are essentially, again, just kind of sinks for whatever that leftover is. It'll probably taste good, more or less, maybe.
Fruit salad's the one that always gets thrown away with no mix. No one ever finishes it, and it's always gone after 2 days later. I look at it, I'm like, that's done.
But then some recipes like salmon cakes, I very rarely buy a side of salmon with the intention of making salmon cakes out of it. I cut the nice portions and I cook those, and then with the leftover, it's like, well, I might as well do something, so we make salmon cakes. Same with cooked polenta. Actually, once you're done pour it into like a muffin mold, and then you've got these beautiful little polenta cakes that you then put a nice sear on both sides, and boom, there's your next meal right there. And again, frittatas, it's almost unimaginative. Just throw some oil in a pan, throw all your nonsense in there, cover it with some eggs that you've beaten up, whipped up, scrambled up. That's wrong.
You're so violent with eggs. So violent with eggs.
And then figure out what items are saladable. I used to make what I would call just a big, dumb, tasty salad, and it's just that. It's a base of lettuce, all sorts of random, I don't know, some vegetables, sure, tomatoes and cheese and salamis and whatnot.
Oh my.
I mean, yeah, I've thrown pulled pork on a salad. There's almost nothing that you can't somehow justify turning into a salad if you can figure out the dressing that would work to make it all go together. That's your challenge right there.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the bigger challenges, is actually getting the flavors to come together. Like, this is a great idea. Why did I use raspberry balsamic?
Like my pork stew last night, I was like, well, you know what goes well with pork is fruit, and I've got some canned peaches here, and so I threw some peaches into the stew, and it's like, well, that didn't come out as special as I thought it would. Oh, well.
But trial and error when you're doing stuff like that.
Absolutely. Because it didn't make it bad. It just didn't pop. I thought it would be, a nice little like, oh, there's a little sweet note to mix with it, and it all just kind of got blanded out.
Yeah, no, that's going to happen. It's kind of like in tending bar, when I had a friend of mine, he's like, you're not going to believe what goes with sherry. And I'm like, okay, and lay it on me. And he does. And I'm like, there's no way that goes together. What the hell? And he's like, I grabbed the wrong bottle making a drink, and it was the first two ingredients. I'm like, screw. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that works.
Sure.
Trial and error.
Absolutely.
There's something, I've had stuff I put together like, that is amazing. I don't know where that came from.
Right. Oh, and I've absolutely made, say, like not just frittatas, but sandwiches and stuff where basically this sandwich is almost unrepeatable. It's not science, it's alchemy, where, the whole point of science is a repeatable end product. Alchemy is, a unique thing, and that will never happen again.
Oh, I'm a big fan of the whole Thanksgiving turkey open face sandwich with, the turkey, yes, the mashed potatoes,
load it up. And
some of the greens, some of the cranberry sauce in there.
My next word was about to be cranberry. Because on this very important day, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it's about food and community. And other than that, there are no rules. You get people together and you eat. The details are up to you. And I love that. We should have more of those set throughout our calendar. But with the traditional American Thanksgiving in particular, there is cranberry. And I love cranberries. I think they're great. I love the tart. I love especially on that plate where everything is so savory and so rich, you need something to cut that. And so, of course, there's the debate in cranberries. Do you like the sauce or do you like the canned stuff?
Both.
The
They're both different. They both have they both bring a different game to the table, so to speak.
They serve different needs on the table, yes, and in the leftovers.
Absolutely. The sauce, especially when someone has a recipe for their own cranberry sauce, I think is fantastic because you always get to try something a little bit new. One of my favorites is it has the whole cranberries and then a little bit of a syrup that they've made with it, but usually they add a little bit of citrus zest to it as well and give it a nice little brightness.
A little clove, a little orange in there.
Exactly. But then just the one that just the whole
plop
falls on the plate and just sits there. Like, some people class it up by slicing it almost like the turkey.
Slice it along the ridge lines.
Slice along the ridge lines and then lay it sideways so it's all got that. But it's a different flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say, for the leftover sandwich the next day, that the sliced gelled cranberry is almost perfect because you could just put like a tomato slice, just stack it on there.
And just put it right on there. And for the sandwich, it's just boom, boom, boom right there. Whereas, I consider that kind of something you put on the food, almost like salt and pepper to add to the flavor, whereas the cranberry sauce is like a side that you're kind of like a spoonful or two and you're tasting that while you're eating. But this is something you just plop right in the middle. It's like, take a bite of that and it cuts, like you said, through the savory, through the gravy, through however you have flavored your turkey or turducken or whatever your Thanksgiving thing you cook is, deer, who knows?
Yeah, right. Whole side of venison. That's cool.
Whole side of venison. Like schnitzel, because that's what our Thanksgiving is.
Oh geez, a few years ago in Park City, when my chef at the time, Tim Carpenter, was my roommate, we had invited about a dozen people over for Thanksgiving dinner because we had that night off from the ski resort. And we had, at the time I was dating a pastry chef, and then our other friend, Daniel, who was also another cook, was there. So they're basically 4 professional cooks making this Thanksgiving dinner. We invited about a dozen people, and they all had other things to do. So it was just the 4 of us. And it was off the hook. Leftover sandwiches that next day was among the culinary highlights of my career because, again, can't be replicated at this point. I can't even describe all the various flavors, but there were like 4 or 5 different meats stacked up on that sandwich, and then the house-made cranberries and all the green beans, and it was decadent.
My family would go down and visit my brother in Arizona from Utah because why not go where it's warm for Thanksgiving for a week? And I was working at Harrio's, and they had this huge thing planned for Thanksgiving weekend, and I had to stay and work, which I'm like, that happens once in a while. That's fine. So me and Glenn had planned to have this huge Thanksgiving thing out at his house and cook this stuff up and all that. And he was smoking a turkey. So, I mean, we had this huge, we had these mashed potatoes that we first off made out of, I think the Cubs recipe book that were about 3,500 calories per serving. I mean, there was so much in this. But as we were smoking this turkey, we had everything done, everything set, and we're smoking the turkey, and then realized that we had a huge cold snap. I mean, it was so cold that in Harrio's we were wearing coats. It was below 0 for like 3 days in Utah, which never happens. And then we were smoking a turkey in that. So it took about 11 hours to smoke a turkey.
Wow.
Just literally okay, what are we going to do with this? So we had eaten most of the sides by the time the turkey was done. So we had sandwich nirvana for the next 3 days of smoked turkey and what to do with smoked turkey and smoked turkey omelets and, smoked turkey casserole with broccoli and cheese and add them. I mean, just all kinds of different stuffs and sandwiches. The sun had gone down. Is it done yet? Nope. And it's like, we should probably put it in an oven at this point. Yeah. I think it's actually freezing again. There
are a couple things that I do like to do with leftover mashed potatoes, and there aren't a lot. A shepherd's pie, like having the topping on that, and take my word on it, you can freeze mashed potatoes, and if you're using it for a purpose like a shepherd's pie, it'll be fine. Especially if you throw some cheese on top, it'll come out just fine. But then latkes, potato pancakes, it's really, you add a little flour and an egg, and you've got breakfast the next day. Little applesauce on there. Oh, happy day. Before we move on to our last segment here, there is one special class of leftover that isn't specific to this holiday, but I want to touch on it, and that is pizza. Because, in my opinion, pizza generally suffers no quality difference between being served fresh and being served cold right out of the fridge. Now, sure, our friend Glenn has this convoluted method of reheating his pizza that involves a toaster oven, the actual oven, aluminum foil, a cast iron pan, and I think he recants a spell that he found scrawled on a wall in the catacombs under Naples or something like that. I just eat it cold out of the fridge. But
do you want pizza? Yeah, 25. I'm like, we could have made a pizza, Glenn.
We could have. At the time it took. I mean, it's gorgeous, and he does get it.
It is so good, though. It comes out perfect.
And he's doing it specifically with the Detroit-style pan, so it is a thicker crust. It's not just the thin crust that is, I will admit, a little easier to eat with all the cold congealed cheese, which some people find off-putting, I suppose. So he does get it back to almost to that quality of it just came out the oven the first time. But to me, it's not worth the effort. I'll just eat it cold.
I usually I'll reheat it once in a while, and sorry, chef, microwave. But I mean,
what's that?
It's that thing you should use once in a while to help speed things up when you have to cook something fast. But one of my coworkers showed me once. It's like, hey, you want to do it right? Take a paper towel, get it damp, put it on top of the pizza, do it. I'm like,
if you have a leftover New York slice or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
just throw it on there and it comes out and it's just great.
All right. Well, we will take one more break and we're going to come back with some final thoughts on leftovers.